call the meeting to order at 6:01. Thank you, everybody, for coming on, and I think this works out well, having the hybrid meeting. Paula did reach out to me that she had some items to share regarding accessible housing, and you had another meeting to go to, right, Paula? So you wanted to be first, so I think it kind of falls under the Herd School next steps process. So I think that if there's no objections, I'll let Paula do hers because she had somewhere to go at 6:30 or something. So
thank you
Paula,
so much. I just wanted to take an opportunity and kind of share the Commission on Disabilities kind of priorities and kind of what the Commission has been talking about for the last couple of years regarding housing. And it's, and the majority of people on this trust probably know a lot more about housing than I do. That is definitely not my specialty, but people with disabilities is. And so just wanted to talk about some more like creative options. I know there's a couple of families actually in Wakefield that have some like blueprints of different models. And so just kind of as this group formulates and as we move forward and talk a little bit more about the Herd School, I just wanted to kind of throw out there kind of some different possibilities and kind of what that looks like is, maybe in like a bigger building, there's one floor that's for people with disabilities, and then all of the rest of the people are just the general public or our elderly, but things that are kind of constructed in a different way. So not just like what we think of for the accessible things in terms of like lower stoves or counters or an accessible shower, but how can we best support kind of like the staffing needs, the caregiving needs of all people with all different kinds of disabilities throughout the community. And just also kind of from I think a couple of different perspectives too, just thinking about Wakefield citizens with disabilities as people who have, grown up in Wakefield, who have benefited greatly from our school system and are really valuable members of our community. And, how can we support them kind of in their adulthood and as they grow older while, also supporting their families. So just kind of wanted to put a plug out there to kind of encourage this group to, think creatively and kind of some out of the box thinking. It might not be something that we could do within the first 6 months, or I know we have a timeline on this funding, but just kind of wanted to put that out there.
Okay. You mentioned that you had that there was some blueprints available. Does the Commission have any of those as kind of something to look at?
Yes, absolutely. I could share those with the group.
That'd be great. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that is
Thank you.
something that's part of our mantra, I guess. Any other comments on this? No? Okay. So the Herd School, we did take a nice tour and kind of saw it and looked at some possibilities. And I think Gail is very into the numbers, and maybe that's a element of foreshadowing for maybe a position on the committee. But Gail gave us some information. So Gail, you want to talk about that a little bit as we go forward and consider next steps and what we can and can't do?
Okay, so I sent an email out. I think I don't even remember anymore. Anyway, sent an email out. What it had two examples of schools that low income housing tax credit developments where we renovated a school. We've done more than those two, but I just to throw out what they can look like. Now, these are a lot more units. Right. What they usually do is they'll have the main school and then they do an add-on to it. So there's kind of new construction toward the back. That's what both of these did. But it was just an example of what low income housing tax credit properties can look like. Then I gave you guys some numbers related to a property that we did. I think it's in Westford, called Helena Crocker. That was new construction. That was it's being project managed. It has project-based vouchers on it through Chelmsford Housing Authority. And I gave you that so that you can understand, or instead of having to ethereally understand how much it's going to cost, that is what it cost for us to build that property and where the money came from. So I think on that, it was $10 million and change. It's only 18 units. That means each unit's about $500,000. Now there is usually, you know, common area space. I'm not sure what the amenities were on that one. I don't have that one in front of me right now, but so yeah, it's expensive to build it. That project was a 9% tax credit, so it got most of its funding is coming from equity, which means that banks are investing through the need to fulfill their CRA requirements, their community, what is it? Community
Reinvestment Act.
Reinvestment Act. Yeah. In order to fulfill that, investing in LIHTC or affordable housing covers that. So most of the investors we have are banks. We do have some economic investors, but the idea is that banks will pony up the money. What they get in return are tax credits and losses from the property. And then there's a bunch of soft debt. So this was a Massachusetts property. So I just wanted you to see that, you know, half of it came from equity, but then the other half we're literally scrounging around trying to find, you know, $500,000 there, $1 million here, which all usually comes from the state in some form of a loan. And usually those loans have land use restrictions, so that, or LURAs, that even though the tax credit is only a 15-year time frame, when you have that kind of soft debt, unless it's paid off, that property has to stay affordable, usually for the next 40 years. So there's usually an extended use agreement that's 15 years, but then there's, you know, restrictions from those loans. So it wasn't, I want to make sure that you understand, it wasn't about like Stratford getting involved in doing any of this stuff. It was more for you guys to understand what it actually costs to do something like this. Where you'd have the bigger bang for the buck may not be at the Hurd School, but if you had any other property, I believe I heard Mike and I were talking, you have some property on Butler that has some asbestos issues. There could be a possibility that you could get brownfield credits for that to help pay for the cleanup. But once again, I mean, I don't know. We've done some brownfield credit properties in Buffalo, New York, from the steel mills. So it was just really just, hey, here's some information. This is about what it cost. 18 units. That's all. It was just said, it was more like FYI, this is what we're looking at. And I said it has nothing to do with like Stratford getting involved. It's just more like this is how it works. So there, that's it.
Thank you, Gail. It was very, very interesting. Any members have any comments or?
Steve, I have a question, and again, this is probably phenomenally naive, Gail. What about these makes them affordable? What's the definition of affordable?
Well, they have to, I think it's no person can make more than 60% of the AMI in the area.
So that's the area median income. And a lot of let's talk about the 40B projects in town. And this is probably something that this committee should discuss at some point. A lot of those go, and does it have to be 60%, Gail, in your case? Because a lot of them are 80% now.
It can be, it varies. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of our properties we have what's called income averaging, which means I might have a group of people that are effectively homeless. and are paying almost next to nothing. And then might have somebody, yes, who's on the higher scale, that's going to be paying some more, that could be at the 80% range. We've done projects where it's less, low income as much as it's what we call workforce housing. And, and it's not just about being, like I said, not having any money, but if you're at a job that's only paying minimum wage or even a little bit more than minimum wage, even like $25 an hour, it's expensive. So, it's like my son fits into the 80% of AMI category, based on his like gig work that he does. Teachers, especially, out of school people. So, the thought patterns always, I said, when you talk affordable, you start to think about, like I said, for the old people in the group, that, Cabrini Green, I used to live in Chicago, and, you just think of the projects, or down in Charlestown, and then that's not what they're like. They're basically apartment buildings. From the outside, you would have no idea that they look like that. So Bill, it can vary. It can vary from 20% to 80% AMI.
Thank you.
And that number, Bill, is actually, comes from the state. Do you know what and we're kind of looped in like the greater Boston area for our area. Do you know what it is, Sam, offhand?
I believe it's around 80% AMI is around $80,000. I'd have to go look at the exact number,
Yeah,
but that
around
covers even
80.
like firefighters.
Yeah.
Gail had mentioned school teachers. It's general people who might not be paid higher, like people in tech that are in town. And of course, because we have a high cost of living area, it's higher than it would be in other places. And currently, most of our affordable housing is utilizing the 80% AMI as part, just as a side note for everybody, as part of the housing production plan and the housing needs assessment. That is something that's going to be looked at, whether or not that is something that we need to reassess, or if we need to look at potentially trying to up, or I guess decrease the percentages to try to help reach a wider population. Although most of our units end up, when they do open up in a number of the new developments, end up having a wait list, and not everybody that applies is able to get a unit. So the more that we can work to try to include some of this, obviously the better on projects, to be able to meet a variety of housing needs within the area.
Exactly. Any other, thank you, Sam. Any other comments on this? My
One of the concerns I had when I saw Gail's numbers on other projects was, if the herd is only going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a dozen units, and to build a unit is in the neighborhood of 550 or 570 or whatever it is for a unit, and we don't have a lot of parking area where we could do an add-on build similar to these other school buildings that have been worked on that Gail's talking about, the difference between 12 units and 18 units, I'm wondering, is that a project that's going to be very difficult to make the numbers work under any circumstances? That was my initial concern. And is it, for the amount of money we have in this trust, is it possible that we might be biting off more than we can chew? That was just a concern I had based on the real life costs of what it takes to build a unit in today's economy.
that was kind of my same point. There's 11 or 12 was kind of a low number to be able to spread out some of these other costs on for there.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Please.
The reason I came down is I was trying to find out, is the so-called sale of the herd a done deal?
No,
Okay.
no,
Does it have to go in front of town meeting?
yes. And it needs a 2/3 vote.
2/3 vote,
Yeah.
okay.
These are just options, just talking about options.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I just wanted to make sure we're not going to give up a school that we may need with all the building that's happening in town with all these units, especially right at the head of the lake, and the school herd is closest to that than anywhere else.
Yeah, it is an argument, but it would take millions to bring that school back up to code and get rid of lead paint and things like that probably.
Doesn't have to be a school, though. We can take town hall's in good shape
Oh.
now, make that into the school. Yeah.
It's a possibility,
We
I
can have
guess.
options.
But we do still, although it's in different part of town, we do still have the possibility of the school down in Greenwood that we're renting to the SEAM Collaborative,
The old school.
the old
Um,
school.
I think it would probably, but not to go too far off, it'd probably be more cost effective to add on to Doyle, Dolbear, and Greenwood.
Where's the space to add on?
Oh, this space and both of those web spaces, Doyle and Dolbear in particular.
And it depends on the numbers. I mean, the superintendent at town meeting in other
And
places.
I don't go by those
Right.
numbers. When you see all this building,
He said he's cautiously optimistic, but he didn't say
okay,
we aren't gonna have a problem in a few years. I'm with you. I don't know. Maybe we should
think,
just leave the
yeah.
herd.
Yeah, I think that maybe, yeah, we've been doing it for a while, yeah. When we did meet with the neighborhood on the Herd School, for those of you that haven't heard this, we had a number of neighborhood meetings, and no matter what if we were even to consider it, I would suggest that we go through that again, probably on site so people can come and take a look at it. The consensus was housing in the existing footprint of the building. It seemed that's what they liked. They didn't want to have on an addition. And a lot of these other schools they look at, there's the main building and then they have land to add on. That was the consensus, I want to say, in 2015. Things may have changed since then. But if we do consider the herd for anything, and we're maybe just fact finding, gathering now, I would suggest we go that route to have some public hearings on that to see where and again, is this something that the Affordable Housing Trust would put some money in? Is it something that would be, 12 units or 11 units with 3 of them would be affordable, and the developers would have to bid knowing that or what have you. So I think there's a lot of things to consider. So we're far from any done deal on that. There's a lot of work to be done, tons of work.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. There's a housing authority want to buy it.
I wish we had the money to buy it. It reminds me of the Lincoln School.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's 25
yeah.
units in the Lincoln School plus our offices, and it's a project-based
Yeah.
voucher building. The Community Reinvestment Act for the banks, can you talk about that a little bit more? Is that a loan or a mortgage or,
No, so any place where a bank has a footprint, it could be even an ATM machine, actually. They're required to actually invest some of their, or donate, or however you want to put it. It depends on what they want to do, to put that money back into the town.
Right.
Do some kind of something that benefits the area where they have a footprint. So how it works in my world, for the low income housing tax credits, is there's 3 things that the banks are doing. One, they'll give us a construction loan. So now they're lending money. They're making money on the construction loan during this construction time. They're investing. So what there is a partnership that actually owns the building, and the bank will come in and be a partner in that investment. What they get in return, how they make their money or their rate of return, is they get losses, because real estate in its very nature, because of depreciation, creates losses. So they get those losses, which reduces their taxable income, and they get a tax credit. So for every dollar of credit that they invest in and they get that credit back, they don't have to pay tax. So it's almost like the low income housing tax credit is actually paying for their taxes. Okay. And this has been, the housing tax credit has been in place like since I think late 80s is when it started. And it is really one of those things that the federal government put into place where everybody wins. And I mean everybody, because people that don't have the money have a beautiful, nice place to live. Banks have their CRA requirements, and they make money. So they make money even with contributing with the CRA, and the developers make money, and the syndicators make money. Like literally everybody wins in this situation, because what you have is you have federal money and local money coming together to build affordable housing. So, and there's many developers that do this in the area. It's not just us. There's other people other developers out there that do this, both for profit and nonprofit.
And when the bank regulators,
Are there any examples in Wakefield where that's happened with the banks being involved with this kind of projects such as this?
I don't know. I know that a long eons ago, we bid for Franklin and y'all town didn't want to make it affordable, so we backed out of that project. I don't know if in Wakefield. I do know that in Melrose there is the Cephalo building that's down off of West Wyoming. That's a tax credit property. That's owned by Beacon Properties.
I know they love when we see it.
So do they prefer to make them affordable, which is the 80% AMI, or like a project-based voucher?
It doesn't matter
Building.
how, it doesn't
So
matter
that
how the
would-
rents are paid.
It doesn't, okay.
Okay, it's just that everybody who's in there has to qualify with 80% or less AMI.
Right.
Now, we can, in the case of, we work with Chelmsford Housing Authority, and Chelmsford has project-based vouchers.
Right.
So it's called a HAP contract. So we have a HAP contract on that, which
Yep.
means that we don't have to worry about getting paid because the
Right,
government
you
is
get
going
the
to pay.
market rent. You get the other half of the market rent,
Actually,
HUD.
no, we're all the rents are below market, but we don't have to worry about getting paid.
Right.
No one's, if they have a voucher, the state's paying us as opposed to them just not paying.
Absolutely.
And we have
And
to
then I
evict
think you
them.
might be able to service more of the low income people. They wouldn't.
Right. I mean, we
yeah.
love working with project-based vouchers, but we also
Yeah.
take, the regular Section 8 individual vouchers too. Or
Right.
if you're at 80% and you can pay the rent, then you don't have a voucher and you just can be in there. So,
Right. Okay. Thank you.
uh-huh.
any other comments on the Hurd School at this point in time? So it seems like that's something we need to do a little bit of thinking and work on and see if we can get a loan for housing authority.
Yeah,
To do
we
it.
just paid off our loan for the Lincoln.
There you
School.
go. Come on now, you get more collateral. You can
That was
spread it
through
around.
Mass Housing.
Yeah. Those might be some things too. So those are some things that we can be thinking of looking at for next steps, but it's gonna be a thoughtful and a long process, including public outreach.
Yep, just an option.
Couple of other things that we were looking at, and we talked about this, something that I'm very excited about personally is down payer assistance programs. And I did a lot of this on my old lawyer days. I don't know, did you do any of them, Mike? Those soft
No.
second mortgage. A lot of communities will help out first-time home buyers with a soft second mortgage, meaning there's no payment back. And that'll help them cover part of the down payment, closing costs, things like that. And Sam did some work on that. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you. Kind of talk a little bit about down payer assistance programs or rent or whatever.
Yeah, so there's two different main options. There's the down payment assist, at least that I researched, the down payment assistance program, and then some sort of rental assistance program, which meets, sorry, the light just got blown out. That meet kind of more, the rental is a more short-term immediate thing. If someone's having trouble paying their utility bills or their rent, there's a variety of different ways that you could potentially structure it. But that is one option for some of that money. As far as down payment assistance program, there's lots of conversation or lots of questions and factors that come into play, like who would it be for? Are you focusing primarily or only on first-time home buyers? And then obviously you need to choose what qualifies as a first-time home buyer. Like the FHA programs are, I think, no ownership for something like 3 years, maybe it's 6 years. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. Thinking about whether past foreclosures matter, if it needs to be owner occupied as a primary residence, just all kinds of different things. One thing to keep in mind is most of the other programs that I had found had, not most of them, but some of them had either restructured or had gone converted to rental assistance. When you're talking about potentially giving somebody $10,000, it sounds like a lot, but when you're, if someone's trying to qualify under a FHA first-time home buyer, that's 3.5%. That only gives you, I think it's something like 250,000. So it might be potentially a match program. There are a lot of different ways to structure it. It $10,000 using 3.5% down equates to roughly a $286,000 unit. So like I said, it may need to be considered or looked at from the approach of a match program, or if we have affordable housing, if it is something that we develop, it wouldn't address the money that we have that needs to be earmarked and dedicated by the end of the year. But it is something that you could look at in the long run. Cambridge has a program where they started out with the traditional down payment assistance program and then ended up creating this other program because of the cost of housing there, because it's so astronomical. They do still have their down payment assistance program, but it is only tied to affordable units, because again, you start to get into this place where the affordability component related to having that 3.5% down, if they're doing FHA, it just doesn't meet that criteria. So just some things to think about. It's totally feasible. There are still places who do it. Sometimes it's paired with state programs, and that could be the way that it's structured, is that any of our money would be matched to state money that can be obtained through their programs. There's a variety of different ways that we could potentially structure it if it is something that you want to move forward with. I would just need to know which direction you'd like to go in, and then I can start working on getting the structure of it set up and working with the legal components and whatnot. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you feel like I missed, feel free to pop on and ask a question.
Any questions about this? I have a couple of comments. Mike?
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. So what we do is we take $10,000, we lend it to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not cover that at all. So there's two different options. Some municipalities do effectively like a grant. It's completely forgivable after you've stayed in the house for an extended period of time. Other municipalities do what Steve was referring to as a soft second.
Okay.
So over a period of time, or you get to a certain threshold of you've lived in the house and your primary mortgage, your first mortgage is paid off, then you start paying on this second mortgage or the lien or however it's recorded. And that is definitely another option. I think if we didn't have a structure for the coffer to be refilled, it's probably pretty crucial that that money is coming back in at some point in time so that it can be recycled.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
that's what I was getting at. I mean, you can grant it out, but then, I mean, think about it. The only way the money is going to come back, it isn't going to be because the first mortgage is paid off, because I mean, that's going to be 30 years. And then, you know, if it's foreclosed, then we're second in line. So we may not get the money back then. And if they move, then yeah, maybe we'll get the money back. So
yeah, there are a number of different things, such as if someone tries to refinance, that it would come up and need to be repaid. And these are examples from other municipalities. It really depends on just how, like I said, how we want to structure it. But yeah, if somebody's refinancing, some places, if you have an ADU and you can rent it out, once you start renting it out, you have to start paying on it. If you sell the unit, obviously for most places it has to stay affordable. And so there's that component of it. And then if you sell it, whatever proceeds you make off of a certain amount, and if it's an affordable unit, then it may have a cap on that. But any additional proceeds would then have to go to paying back that soft second or the lien, however it's recorded. And then, yeah, if somebody is in there for a prolonged period of time, then that would be, once their first is paid off, then they have to start paying on the second. But yeah, without us having something like being able to continuously apply for grants that we could get funding for this, or having CPA money that's coming in as part of this, which we just don't have the approval for it yet, or if the state enacts something else, or I don't know, without having some sort of funding coming back in, we really can't just, I mean, you can't, let me rephrase that. You can hand out grants if you want to, just understand it would be very, very limited on the amount of impact you could have. And I think that that's another component to really consider how you would want to deal with those.
In most instances, again, people refinance, or it's their first home, and maybe they sell and they, go to a bigger place, what have you, and you're paid back. But the key is that you have extra money to pay for closing costs or help with the down payment, and you're not paying any monthly payment on that, so it helps you qualify easier. It's worked in a lot of communities. I know Danvers had a great program, which they don't do anymore, but I do like the
No.
idea of getting it, having it replenish back
Yeah,
as you do pay it back.
Danvers did convert theirs to a rental assistance
Rental
and
assistance.
kind of more emergent,
Yeah.
short-term funding type of program. So they still have one going on. They just don't
Right.
have the down payment assistance.
And I will say, we do get a high number of inquiries from people that are looking to move to Wakefield rental wise, and we don't have a funding mechanism for this at all right now, that can get into an apartment, but they don't have the first, last, and security. And they're looking for, do you have any assistance for that? Which we don't. This might be something that, for affordable units, this may be something we think about. Again, with an agreement that it maybe comes back. I guess if they trash the apartment and you lose it, but it might be something to think about going forward.
Samantha, are these programs that you've looked at, are they in the affordable category? I mean, I don't know whether Steve's talking about a soft second on your average Wakefield $1 million house.
No, they're not on $1 million houses. Most of them, at least Cambridge's program is complicated, so I would not compare it to how theirs works. But generally speaking, most other municipalities have an affordability component tied in. They might have a maximum purchase price tied in. Obviously this person has to be able to qualify for the loan. Some of them have it tied into a particular mortgage lender. Like, you have to work with these people in order to get through this program because we trust that they meet, whatever our criteria is, they're validating all of this, versus us having to take in that paperwork and having to go through their credit report and their worthiness and all of that stuff. It can get complicated. So there are a couple different ways to structure, but the vast majority of the time it is shouldn't say the vast majority of the time, but because there are different ways that people approach it. But because of the amount that's typically being offered, which is most of them are around $10,000. I think there might've been 1 or 2 programs that are at 20. You're not going to be able to afford more than about $500,000 unless you're coming up with your own money. And then that can also potentially put a damper on whether or not you qualify. So a lot of places, from what I have, the research that I gathered is that they are primarily tied to affordable units, which would be something that we could potentially even focus on in the long run, even through the HPP, Housing Production Plan. Sorry.
I'm not at all, don't have an opinion for or against relative to how the trustees want to structure this, but obviously we don't have a continuing funding source. So if we're looking at 960, and 200 of that has to be kind of dealt with a little bit more quickly than the other 760. We have to decide whether we're going to do direct grants, direct rental assistance, which one of the items I read when we were first setting this up said, you got to be careful about that because people, come to rely upon it. And also, as Gail's indicated, you don't have any recycling of money. So it's just something the trustees have to think about, what kind of things do we want to be doing?
I think it would be nice to work in conjunction with, on the sales side, on the mortgage side, with the affordable units in some of the developments that are being built. So you have people that are already qualifying, first-time home buyers are already affordable. And so we know that because they've gone through the lottery, all right? So that may be something with the soft second would help them get in and pay for their closing costs and what have you. And we would be replenished because it would come back to us.
Right. And we do have some groups like this
Chappa's a big,
that
right.
help to make sure that affordable units resell as affordable.
Exactly,
units.
as does in the state, yeah.
How many units do we have in the town that are for sale affordable?
Well, we don't know on resales, but they do come to us but look at the new condos that are being built on Foundry Street. 18% of those are affordable. A lot of the new buildings are rental now.
Right.
So we may want to talk about rental assistance as well on the affordable units, but for anything that is for sale. There are a bunch of them, both of them on Foundry Streets are for sale, as are the ones on, I'll say the cruise ship, Grayson Lofts.
Well,
Those are all
we
sale.
have other existing, we
Yeah.
had one not want to go on Parker, right off of Prospect.
Right. I was
That's-
just curious, in the
Yeah.
town, how many units
Yeah. I'm not sure
Qualify.
we-
Affordable,
that are affordable that you can
For
purchase?
sale, I can't, I know how many we're gonna have, because we're gonna hit 10% of all the housing stock, but I don't know the mix off the top of my head.
Of
between
rental,
sale
but
and
yeah.
rentals.
versus
But there are a lot,
Right,
like
okay.
Heron
Just
Pond,
curious.
Heron Pond, for
Right,
instance,
I've seen
has
that.
a number of affordable.
Yeah, I've seen those before. Just curious
Yeah.
as to like how often it would even come up that we would be able to do this.
Well, they come up
Periodically.
Well, with the new
periodically. They'll
ones.
come up a lot in the beginning
Right.
when the
But they
development
open
goes
it.
out, but then,
Right.
they come up after that, so.
Well, they still have to stay affordable usually. They don't get to
Right.
be resold. You have to, if you try to sell a unit that's designated as an affordable unit, the next people in have to qualify.
Right,
Correct,
right,
Right.
correct.
right. I'm
Right.
just curious as how many of those units do we have in town?
Yeah. I don't, I've been curious of that question as
Yeah.
well, both on a rental and on a owning basis too. Like, I don't, I keep getting ethereal numbers,
Yeah.
but I'm an accountant, so like, I like real ones.
So we know what our total SHI unit is,
I can get you that
For
in
unit
2
count.
seconds.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
it's somewhere.
Does that, Steve, can I ask, does that speak to, I missed the first meeting. Did you guys review this PowerPoint and?
Yes,
Okay, so, I reviewed it again today. I hadn't reviewed it since the first time you gave it to me, and I'm struck by the amount of obligations that this committee has, and thematically, we were just talking about, I'm looking at one of the things that says prepare an inventory of property potentially suitable for affordable housing. Are we talking kind of around that?
that might be Hurd School. Might be Butler Ave. So yes, we are talking about that.
Oh, okay, but are there,
Yeah.
I guess part of what I'm hearing is
Yeah.
are there other potential places, or you're kind of saying we really don't know?
I'm saying that we know exactly where all of the affordable units are in town right now that are registered with the state. We know that, but I think what that's talking about is we may, other communities have gone in like a houses for sale on Vernon Street, okay? 2 families for sale on Vernon Street, and we may say, hey, that might be good for the housing trust to buy and keep it affordable if we had a lot of money. Or maybe there's a vacant lot or something like that. So I think that's what that's talking about,
Okay,
is looking at things like that.
all right, thank you.
So kind of to build off of what Steve just said, I know I said I wasn't going to really talk about Cambridge's programs that they have because it is a little more complicated. But one of the things that they do is they, like, if someone were to buy or want to buy a house in Cambridge, the trust, their housing trust, will pay the difference between what their affordable unit rate would be and the market rate. And then that unit will be added to their SHI. And so it would come online as an affordable unit. And at the time of somebody vacating it, the city has first right of refusal to be able to fully buy that unit from the previous person. And that's kind of going off, I think, a little bit related to what Steve was talking about with if there's a building on Vernon Street that you wanted to buy that was multifamily or something. There are different ways to be able to structure it if that is a goal. The point I was trying to make too with the down payment assistance program and the rental assistance program is there's so many different ways you can make this happen, and so many different criteria and different components that really it's up to you. If Steve was saying that or I can't remember who it was actually who was saying that you want to make sure that they're not depending on it. It can be a one-time thing. It can be related only to a security deposit. It can be, you can require them to have a match component. Again, it's how you want to structure it. My goal is to try to give you some different ideas to think about if this is something you want to proceed or start to look into more seriously. Then these are some of the questions that you would want to think about, and these are some of the conditions and criteria that need to be applied to it, and potentially even looking or having me, I guess, look at different grants that we could go after to help refill those coffers.
I just had a quick question, or two quick questions. For Sam, do you know, I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but do you know if it would be allowable to give like a local preference, like for people who are existing Wakefield residents for either rental or mortgage assistance?
I can look. I think that you could, I mean, again, as far as I can tell, you can structure them any way you want. But I can look into that more to give you a definitive answer.
Okay. And then I don't know if Steve just walked away, but I know a little over half of the money in the trust is from ARPA money. Could we get just a refresher on where the other funds came from, and if there's no deadline to spend those, just a refresher on kind of where.
I can give you that. There's no deadline at all.
Good.
And those other funds came from affordable units that were bought, that were developed and went to an affordable first-time home buyer. And when they went back on the market for resale, there were no affordable buyers to be found. So the state gives you a certain number of months that if you can't find anybody, then you can sell it at a market rate. However, you as the owner don't get a windfall, right? So the difference where the market rate, where the difference between the market rate and the affordable rate actually comes back to the city or town to go into this purpose. So that's where 760 came from.
Got it. Thank you.
And this was nothing since I think 2015. So there was a time there, I mean, the economy wasn't good and people weren't buying, and I don't know. It was kind of strange.
Yeah, so Charlie, it's not 50-50, it's 760 that we had for a long time.
Yeah.
And 200 that the town council voted to take out of ARPA. So there's not a panic urgency on the 200, but that's the money we should focus on making sure we commit by the end of this calendar year, and then spend, right, Steve, by the end of 26.
Correct. Yeah. To answer the question about how many affordable units there are in town, if everything that has been approved is built, we will have credit for 1,157 affordable units.
But that's a mix of rental.
Mix of rental, and I'd have to go through
and
each one.
ownership.
Yeah. And that
I used
includes
to have,
public housing.
Yep.
I used to have that number because it was part of the first
Yeah.
housing production plan iteration that I wrote, and I can't find it. So, but I know that Aaron has it somewhere, so I can always follow up with that, just so you all know what that is. I can follow up in
Yeah,
an email.
and right now the state is giving us credit, or as of their last SHI subsidized housing inventory that they sent to us on March 11th of 2024, we are at 8.89%. So they're being currently credit for 1,001 units. And again, that's a breakdown between rental and ownership. I'd have to go through them.
Steve, I have a question.
Yep, Matt?
Yeah, the property on Arundel Ave, is that still in town? Is that still town property?
That is town property, yep.
Are there any plans or anything with that right now, or any discussion? I know at one point it was going to be playing fields and that got
Yeah.
kind of shot down.
No, it just never got developed. I think keeping it as open space was the plan right now, but it is, yeah, there was no plans for it again to sell anything like that. Would take a town meeting, 2/3 town meeting vote. Not that I'm saying you want to do that. But yeah, that is, open space right now.
All right, and how much land is down there?
Oh, I have to go back and look at it. Acres.
Okay. All right,
So
just
that's
curious.
another thing on what we've done too on low income is we don't always own the land. Two of our builds in Chelmsford, it's just a ground lease. So that's another way to, like, you can effectively give the land, but you still own possession of it.
Do you pay any rental on that ground lease?
Yes, it depends on how the deal is structured. It could be deferred rental income, meaning that you'll get it eventually, or it will be, yes, they pay you a ground lease every month. It's part of their expense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I'm just saying that that's a possibility where you don't lose control of the land. But what would normally happen is if whoever's developing it has a bunch of soft financing on it, it probably will stay affordable in perpetuity.
Any other comments on this? So we'll be looking at this too. Probably, I would think, combination of both rental and home ownership. One thing I like about what communities do is they do make participants take a kind of a finance course, a housing course, and I think that's kind of important to, budget and things like that, because I always
There's
like those.
also a course on homeownership, like maintenance.
Maintenance,
that
yeah,
there's
I
that
can't do
that one
that,
is
so.
that one is typically like bonus points for people, but the basic homeownership 101, which does talk about budgets, it gives you an overview of what a mortgage is. I know I took it like a long time ago. I don't remember how long ago, in Florida, and it's required for a lot of first-time homebuyer programs and even for some FHA, or at least was then, I believe, programs, and they can be really helpful. You can partner with one of the entities that already offers them and have that course be the required course, or you could have a partnership with multiple entities that offer their courses if they all work, or you can have your own. There's a variety of different ways to structure that if that's one of the additional criteria you want to have included.
Thank you. Any other questions on this or comments on this subject? I can't wait till we get to item 7. I don't have to do this anymore.
One quick comment, Samantha, you mentioned Cambridge a lot, and I'm not gonna, indicate a bias here by saying we're not Cambridge and we don't have their money, but
No,
are
yeah.
you also looking at Andover and other communities that
Yeah, I have a whole list.
maybe are more similar to our housing stock and maybe our level of money that we have?
Yeah, I've looked at Lynn, Danvers, Cambridge. I've looked at the state program. I even looked at a program in another state to see what some of their structure, like does it vary that widely from state to state? Another one that I went and looked at California, which has a high cost of living as well. And so I was just trying to get a very well-rounded picture. And there's other municipalities that just never emailed me back that I reached out to, so I didn't include them on the list. And I will be continuing to follow up. Before I spent too much more time looking at specifics, I really wanted to see how much or what specifically the trust really wanted me to focus on, and gather more information on. So or potentially working on building out some criteria.
Right, we just stood up, so we're a work in progress too. So hopefully we'll get you some guidance when we know what it is.
Anything else on this? Item 5, housing production plan update. That's back to you, Sam.
So I released the RFP, I think towards the beginning of the month. I have had 2 like question and answer sessions with different consultants, and a number of different consultants reach out and email me. Had 1 Zoom call as well. So it's good. I think that people are starting to work on putting their proposals together, or at least interested in putting proposals together, which is what we want. We want to have more than one person responding, or more than one company, more than one consultant. So as soon as I start getting some of those, I'm happy to let you all know. It looks like we have it's just under a month now until they will be due. They're due June 21st, which is a Friday. And like I said, I'm hoping to get a good turnout so that we have a good pool of potential consultants to look at. But my goal is to have it completed 100%. I think it's by February. I have to look at the exact day, but February of 25. That gives us ample time to do the housing needs assessment, which I'm hoping I kind of alluded to it earlier, is re-examine our AMI criteria. We're currently at 80%. Some other municipalities go all the way down to 30% for some of their criteria. And it would be helpful for us to have those numbers, I think, especially as the Housing Trust, and looking at potentially going forward with some other projects, whether we do it in-house or put out an RFP or any combination thereof to see what is the real demand in the area. And it hasn't been updated since 2014. So 10 years ago, it's definitely changed and the numbers are changed. So I'm looking forward to being able to get some of that data and relay it to y'all so you can make a decision on some different projects going forward, which I think will be helpful information for you all. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it. Or if you're curious about any of the consultants, once we do get the proposals in, I'm happy to answer those too.
So this is to hire a consultant to help us draft the housing production plan, and it's being
Yes.
paid for via a grant that we got through the state
Yes.
last year or whenever. So Sam, will you send me a copy of the final RFP? Just so I have it?
Sure.
I think you did, and it got.
It's okay. Yeah, no worries. Also, if
very-
anybody else does, feel free to email me. It is also online if you go under departments, and you can go to planning and you can access it that way. But yes, it's the RFP is for two parts. There's a housing needs assessment, which is what I was talking about with gathering all the data, trying to figure out what the actual needs of the community are. And then there's the housing production plan, which the goal is to have a easy to digest, actionable plan that kind of deals with the different components. The previous plan, I think, had a pretty good foundation for us to go off of and for the new consultants to utilize. Obviously, like I said, it needs to be up to date because it's, I think most of the data is from 2014, 2015. So it is fairly outdated, I believe, at this point. But it will hopefully help to give you some direction for other projects too, and other options, or if there's zoning changes that you want to make recommendations or support, that's something that in theory should be coming out of the housing production plan.
And if you can make it less than the last one's 280 pages, that would be great.
Well,
but just for those that may not be as tied into the HPP, the reason this is important, and ours lapsed in 2020, the reason it's important is when you get it certified by the Commonwealth, it does provide you added 40B protection. I won't get into all the weeds, but it's generally a good thing to have.
Yeah, and meeting our 10% criteria, which we're doing the best we can off of existing numbers. It will change when the next census is done. But once we meet that 10% criteria as well, we also have, sorry, there's a flag. We also have the ability to control the 40B projects. People would need to be working with us on those. So having those two criteria, having the certified housing production plan, as well as meeting our 10%, really affords us the ability as a town to have more friendly projects and have more collaboration versus people coming in and just being able to put up a 40B project with substantially less collaboration with the trust and or the town as a whole.
Exactly.
And one thing I have made sure to include, just as a side note, in the housing production plan RFP is that we have an executive summary. So if you want to go through and you want to get the bullet points of what it is, you don't have to read the entire document and try to understand it and digest it, that you would have something that you can pull out that's, you know, just a couple pages at most, that you can kind of go through and see what our goals are, what we're hoping to work on, and that kind of just basic information. Yeah.
Sam, did you
260
send us the Cliff Notes version
Of the previous housing production plan?
or the RFP?
I can send that. So the RFP is 13 pages.
Okay.
It's not very long. It does go into more detailed information about the criteria of what we're looking for in a consultant. So probably the second half of it isn't quite as, it doesn't apply to really to what you're looking at, but the bulk of it is the first couple of pages. It really talks a little bit about what we have done previously and then what we're looking at doing. One of my big things coming on as a planner and one of the things in my years of experience is I really love having actionable plans. I really want to be able to see the plan, the goals and objectives, and work towards implementing things. Obviously, that is supportive of everybody. I'm not just going to bulldoze, be a bull in a china shop by myself. But I like being able to have that directive, and I really want to make sure that whatever plan we get back has actionable steps, that it isn't just a bunch of fluff or a bunch of planning principles that don't actually apply to Wakefield. So there's some language in there that talks about those specifics as well, but I'm happy to send it out to all of you at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Anything else on this subject? Okay, minutes. I didn't see any minutes. Approval of April 16th minutes, which were sent out, I believe.
I would move to accept them unless anybody has any corrections, changes, comments.
Second,
Who seconded? Charlie? Charlie?
Yep.
Thank you. Any comments? No? Perfect. Thank you. So voted. May 1st minutes, which was really just a tour of the school.
So move.
Second.
Any comments, concerns? Nope. All good? Thank you. Item number 6, which is what I was waiting for, or item number 7 on the agenda. Anybody interested? And we talked about that this trust does require that a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, and a clerk be elected by the membership. That membership being Mike, Sarah, Matt, Harold, who's not here, Gail, Paula, Charles, Bill, and Maureen. So I guess, they do not need to be seconded. But is there anybody, I guess, that would like to be chair? Let's put it that way. How does that sound?
It sounds good. That's the easy part.
Yeah. Don't worry, Samantha and I are going to help you. Someone has to do it.
I'm pointing at Gail Siebert.
Oh.
Come on, Gail, let's make up for me.
Mike said that too, and I said, I can't imagine.
Let's make up for me coaching your sons for years.
Oh, sheesh,
Oh,
no.
there you go, Gail.
Oh, I mean, I could be treasurer. I'm an accountant, so that I could do that one. Oh, man. Okay, I'll do it.
Beautiful.
Oh, my God.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Anybody
all
else? Anybody?
all in favor of Gail?
Aye, aye.
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 All right.
All right, Gail, it's your meeting now.
Oh, no.
Vice Chair.
See, this is what happens. You don't want anybody working with me.
Gail, I will vice chair with you. If
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
go.
We can vice chair over wine.
Oh,
Perfect.
remember, this is all being recorded, please.
We can do that. That's fine.
All
Be
right, all in-
non-alcoholic.
Yeah, that's right. Non-alcoholic wine. All in favor of Sarah?
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Sarah.
Treasurer?
What does the treasurer have to do?
Really, it's all going to be run through the town anyway. It's just
I'll do
It's
that
separate?
with you.
perfect. Everybody happy with Maureen?
Yep.
Ecstatic.
Thank you,
Ecstatic.
Maureen.
Okay. Who's going to motion for Maureen?
So move.
Second.
We'll give Bill Boudry all of them. Okay,
Yeah, Bill
Perfect.
Boudreaux.
thank you. And I think, thank you very much. And I will volunteer Samantha to be your clerk.
So
It's been
move.
me. She's going to take over for me.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Samantha.
Perfect. Are there any other committee comments for tonight?
The only thing, Steve, that I'd point out in case it's not on everybody's mind, because I want it to be on everybody's mind in town for the next few years, is 40B works with the SHI units, the 1,100 and so that Steve mentioned, over the total number of units. We get a break on the denominator for 10 years as we
Correct.
go census to census. So we all have to keep in mind that sometime after 2030, maybe it'll take them 2 years like it did this past decade,
Yes.
maybe only a year. But, towns like Reading have had the 10% and then lost it. Because the dump truck comes in after the next census and puts all those units that we build into the denominator. So we always have to be cognizant that if we have 1,100 here, you know, and we don't add to that number, which is why maybe some friendly 40Bs might be a good idea, you know, to increase the numerator number, because that denominator is going to increase after the next census. Somewhat significantly,
Right, so,
I
so
would say.
right now, the state says that we have 11,261 housing units. So 10% of that would be 1,126, I guess. And we're gonna get the benefit of that 11,261 is not gonna change, as Mike said, for 10 years. But in 10 years, that might be 14,000. And if we didn't move up to 1,400 in affordable housing units, we are back into this kind of 40B area again. So that's something that to keep in mind, and I think this committee can really help by creating some of those units. Or helping to create, be part of the creation there. And that's really what the money is for anyway. Okay, do you want?
I've got a comment, Steve, or a question. Do we want to, in regards to the Hurd School, maybe start some kind of poll or comment for what people may want there, just to get the discussion moving? Obviously, it's not going to happen right away, but if we could get something up online of, you know, people can comment on what they might like to see there. If we have a couple options, just to see, get the, you know, early pulse of the neighborhood and the town.
We can certainly do that. And I think that coupled with at least 2 kind of public meetings there where people can come out and voice their opinions on it, but maybe at the site, because we've done that, we did that before. I think that's a good idea. So we can kind of get some pulse of the community before going forward.
Yeah,
just
to get the process moving. I think that might be the best thing.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So we can be working on that. Gail, maybe we'll get with you to talk about a next meeting date.
You're muted, Gail.
Yeah.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Next, I don't have a calendar. It has to kind of wait till I get back I'm going away tomorrow, so.
Okay, I think everybody, a lot of people are.
Yeah, like I don't know, my head's not in the game right now for dates, but yeah.
Okay.
Steve,
We'll get-
Steve, one
Yes,
question,
Bill.
looking at the requirements, is there an obligation to report something to the town council?
There is by June 30th, if I remember reading the
Yeah,
document
well,
correctly.
at the end of each fiscal year, right? So
Yeah, I can-
something to be aware of.
Yeah, we can draft that up. I mean, it's
Okay.
going to be pretty simple because we haven't really started actual processes yet. We'll toss something together.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Can I ask, Sam, if you can get us some more information about the rental assistance part of that? I didn't hear much about that, so I'm just curious as to how that would work.
Yeah, that would,
You know, towns that have the rental assistance
Right.
programs, how does that
that could
work?
really help.
Right, that
Uh,
might help
Yeah.
us with the shorter goal of spending the other money if we can do something like that. But I don't know how that works. Can you stop it when we run out of funds? I mean, how does that, like you said?
Sure, I can get some more specifics. And then I can also email, once I gather all of that information, I can also email it out before the meeting so that you have ample time to review it beforehand.
Right. And I will tell you, Mike may or may not like this. We are going to put this committee on the Govenda system, which is what we have. I know Billy's shaking his head yes, because he knows about it, which really puts everything on a platform, and it's on an app, and you'll get everything, all the minutes, all the stuff for all the meetings will be on that. So we'll be working with Sam on that to take care of that. Sorry, Mike, or maybe it's good.
I'm already there.
You're already there, so it's just another one.
It's making me sound like such a dinosaur.
No, this will be my 3rd or 4th committee on Govenda, so what the heck? I get more updates on that than anything else. Does anybody have anything else, or are you ready to start your holiday weekend?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Go Celtics.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.